All right, y'all. Gonna get settled in. It's your girl Morgan Renee Myers. Tune in for another story time with More of Mine. We are finishing up Jenifer Lewis's memoir, The Mother of Black Hollywood. We are in chapter 14, and this is an extensive chapter. So let's just hop right on into it, okay? Chapter 14, The Mother of Black Hollywood by Jenifer Lewis. Mother Courage is the name of the chapter. On screen, I have portrayed Whitney's mama, Tupac's mama, Taraji's mama, Terrence J's mama, Gabrielle's mama, and Raven Simone's grandmother. I even played Angela Bassett's mama and What's Love Got to Do with It, despite just being 18 months older than her. Sometimes I think they're going to ask me to play Miss Jane Pittman's mama. They're going to ask me to play Miss Jane Pittman's mama next. Off screen, I never thought of myself as motherly. But God knows that I play with everybody's baby. In my family, among my fans, and even in the grocery store, I may be a high diva sometimes, but nothing humbles my ass quicker than a cute little baby. When I was in love with Thomas, there was a point where I thought we would marry and have a baby. But as time went on, having kids just fell off my to-do list. When Rachel and my boat sister suggested that I consider being more active in the lives of children, I was surprised. They weren't saying jump into motherhood right away. They thought it would be good for me to start out by mentoring. I definitely had the energy for hanging with children and had a sense of fun along with a desire to give back. That's kind of why I'm feeling now. I thought, let me go ahead, pay this $80 for the background check so I can be a substitute teacher, because I kind of miss being around the youth and impacting them versus going somewhere where people give two hoots about customer service and niceties and polite. Anyway, let me go teach the youth something, because I know they out here all jacked up. Several months passed as I continued to work with Rachel and on my own until I felt more confident about embarking on my new venture as a big sister. Many of my friends supported my intention. Deborah Dean Davis wrote a letter of recommendation, and Tom Fennessy was by my side from the start, going with me to the initial meetings with Big Brothers and Big Sisters of America. I was in orientation with them to learn my responsibilities and their process. I went to the community center to meet lanky, adorable 7-year-old Charmaine for the first time. Okay, now she explained it, because in the last chapter, she stated, because this whole time she been talking about she ain't had kids. She had another lover named Miguel, who was really her lifelong love, and she didn't want to get married, and she didn't want to have kids, so that's why I'm confused, with her and Thomas's on and off situation, what about him made him so different from Miguel that she wanted to marry him and have kids? She don't really get into depth about that, though. But in the last chapter, one of her last comments was something about, I remember somebody had a baby. Oh, two gay friends of hers adopted a child, and she was a godmama. And she was saying, I remember saying to my own beautiful daughter, Charmaine, she's got faith, meaning she has beauty and personality. And I'm like, what? This is such a random throw-in to my daughter. You ain't never said nothing about this daughter this whole book. So now she getting into it. I wish she had prefaced us instead of just hopping around. Got me all confused. Okay. So, several months passed, and I could say blah, 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 blah. She was going to her big brother, big sister's meeting. So, I went to the community center to meet lanky, adorable 7-year-old Charmaine for the first time. She was balled up under a table when I first laid eyes on her. She reminded me of myself when I collapsed on the floor of Beverly Heath's friend's kitchen. My heart was drawn immediately to this pretty, skinny, long-legged little girl. She was very shy. When I finally made her smile, she revealed an adorable snaggled tooth right in front. Though I've never been shy a day in my life, the connection I felt to Charmaine was immediate, perhaps because I understood her circumstances. Charmaine's normal resembled mine as a black child in Kinloch. One woman holding down multiple jobs to support multiple children by herself. It was my pleasure to share myself and my resources with this precious little girl. Charmaine and I established a routine where I'd pick her up once a week. She was always anxiously waiting for me at her door. We'd go somewhere fun or just hang out at my place. At first, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. One day, not being able to reach any of my girlfriends, I was forced to call my agent from Whole Foods to ask, what do you see this 7-year-old? The first time Charmaine opened the refrigerator, all she saw was a bottle of champagne and a jar of caviar. I ate pretty healthy, but usually ordered in. I loved every minute we spent together. It felt so good to do for Charmaine what had not been done for me. I'd take her to museums and movies and also made sure that she got outdoors and learned to enjoy nature. Plus, we went shopping a lot. On our first Halloween together, we spent an entire afternoon searching for exactly the right costume. At Toys R Us, I bought her Barbie dolls and books. In fact, I bought her everything I thought she might want. Well, as much as Big Brothers Big Sisters of America allowed. Well, they had rules and regulations for everything. There was even a limit on how much time Big Brothers could spend with their mentees. I was around as much as possible, sometimes bending the rules. Charmaine had become more than a mentee. The first time Charmaine slept over was Thanksgiving. I slowly and gently brushed her hair and then read to her from her favorite book, The 11th Hour, A Curious Mystery. When I tucked her in, her sincere little voice said, "Thank you, Jenny." It was the first time she called me by the name that pretty much only my family uses. I was scared to death, thinking of the million things that could go wrong. I kept waking up to check on her, and finally, I just watched her sleep peacefully. I gave Charmaine lots of hugs, smiles, and laughter. I also found that, surprisingly, I drew from my mother's attitude that she had to toughen up the children to prepare them for life. For example, I wanted Charmaine to build her physical stamina, so we hiked the hills. I would walk very fast, pushing her lanky, mildly uncoordinated little body to keep up. I think the day Charmaine had an asthma attack triggered by an allergy was the day I really understood what it was to be a mother. We were spending some casual time together, and when Charmaine began to cough and gasp uncontrollably, I immediately put her in the car and sped to the hospital. She was fine, but sitting in that emergency room with her for 4 hours, scared the shit out of me. I think I discovered that night what true love was. A few weeks later, I took Charmaine with me to the Magic Johnson Theater to see The Preacher's Wife. I always loved watching my films with predominantly black audiences. In one scene with Denzel Washington, my character entered wearing a very unattractive outfit. A woman behind me shouted, "What the hell is she wearing?" I, of course, had gone to the theater incognito, and Charmaine and I proceeded to laugh and laugh. She loved that her big sister was a movie star. When I had a new movie coming out, Charmaine loved to stay up with me until midnight when we rushed to the 24-hour newsstand to read the reviews in the morning papers. It was obvious that Charmaine was not the only one of us in need, and we both benefited from our paths crossing. I monitored myself because I wanted to be a good example. I was motivated to stay in my adult and let Charmaine be the child if it didn't always work out that way. It didn't always work out that way. I got hypnotized to stop smoking, and after Charmaine came into my life, there was never another one-night stand. And believe it or not, I made sure never to expose little Charmaine to my cursing, not counting road rage. I still have my issues, though. I was not in a relationship, and I was still trying to buy my mother's love despite confronting her about her treatment of me as a child. But my progress was undeniable. I was learning to sit with my feelings instead of acting them out. Let's just say I was still the life of the party, singing, dancing, and clowning around, but at least I wasn't doing it on top of the table or on top of somebody's head. One night, I was driving and feeling comfortable that I knew the road well enough to glance up at the moon through the sunroof. Bam! I hit the guardrail. My car went into a 360 spin, and I ended up in a ditch. The driver door was smashed in. I pried myself out and crawled up the embankment in total shock. When I looked down at the car, my first thought was that my body was dead in the car and my spirit had floated out of it. I thought of Charmaine and how I wanted to be in her life always. Then I thought, damn, the headline tomorrow will be Double D Cup Diva Dead in Ditch. The car was banged up and so was I, but I felt that I could drive. It was a foolish decision, but I made it home safely. Charmaine and I had grown extremely close, so it was difficult to tell her that I would not see her while I went to New York to work with Spike Lee on Girl 6. She didn't seem too disappointed, though, because I sent her to Camp Hollywoodland for the summer. In New York, I had a great time hanging out with my cast members, Teresa Randall and Naomi Campbell. We go to the spa together, to dinner, and to parties. It was all very upscale New York, 180 degrees different from my early days trudging to Gray's Papaya. One morning, Naomi called and asked if I wanted to join her for breakfast in one of her favorite restaurants in Lower Manhattan. She was dating some Cesar at the time and had just returned from Russia. As we gorged on fresh black sturgeon eggs, who walked in but John F. Kennedy Jr. My heart leapt, my legs moved, and I was in front of him within seconds. I know it's difficult to imagine Jenifer Lewis speechless, but I just stood there like a 16-year-old in love. I wanted to say something intelligent, but the only words I could muster were, "My God, you're beautiful." He looked at me in my eye, took my hand, and said, "So are you." He kissed my hand. I would have been walking around with it filthy to this very day. Charmaine's mom, LaRonda, had more on her shoulders than any woman should bear. Not only was she the sole provider for her children, but she had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. We didn't become close friends, but we did sit down for long conversations. LaRonda trusted me with all of her children. Charmaine's three sisters all had big sisters, but I love to scoop up all the girls myself and take them on special outings to the beach or Disneyland. But there was tension among the siblings. It didn't help that I was a well-off celebrity and that Charmaine was somewhat the runt of her sisters. As LaRonda's health deteriorated, Charmaine came to live with me full-time. Eventually, we all agreed that I would become Charmaine's legal guardian. It wasn't exactly adoption, but legal guardianship allowed me to assume all responsibility for the little girl I love so much. I promised LaRonda that I would do my best for Charmaine, including getting her through high school and college. Immediately, I enrolled her in an expensive private school because I wanted her to have the best. Journal entry. Was my mother depressed every day of her life? Is that what I learned? Can I live another way? I'm fighting so hard. These realizations and revelations mean nothing, Jenny, unless you hold on to them and don't drop the ball. Don't drop the ball, baby. Becoming Charmaine's parent helped me to better understand my mother's predicament. I had just one child and could only imagine the pressure Mama felt trying to raise 7. Unlike Mama, I had the time and resources to focus on my child. I showered Charmaine with attention, listened to her, and encouraged her to talk about her feelings and what she wanted in life. I saw that Charmaine felt pulled by the sometimes oppressing forces of her birth family and me. The life she led with me was the polar opposite of her family's struggle. Having grown up poor myself, I certainly understood the conflict she was feeling. Because LaRonda had become too ill to care for her children, Charmaine's 2 older sisters had been sent to live with relatives, and her younger sister, Angelica, had entered the foster care system. I think Charmaine felt guilty that she seemed to have lucked out in such an extreme way. At first, as her big sister, I let Charmaine have her way on just about everything. She was quite artistic, and when we made a birdhouse out of popsicle sticks, I let her stay up until midnight to finish it. I found out soon, however, that as Charmaine's parent, I couldn't always say yes. I now had to say no sometimes. That was hard for both of us. I didn't want to replicate my mother's super strict approach and struggled to find the right balance between big sister and disciplinarian. For instance, I grew up poor, but our homes were clean. My mother said, when I get home, this house better be spotless, and we knew there would be hell to pay if it wasn't. But Charmaine's standards were different from mine, and her refusal to clean her room to my liking resulted in my putting her on punishment. Worse, it caused anger and resentment between us. My favorite cousin, Ronnie, who had become a professional hairstylist, came out to L.A. again to help with Charmaine. He was the sweetest pie and so patient. He drove Charmaine to school, did the cooking, and styled Charmaine's hair, which of course she loved. Ronnie could dance. He could sing. He only had a high school education, but he was smart, fun, loving, and a natural caretaker. It felt good to build a little family with Charmaine and Ronnie and the little apricot poodle cashew that I got Charmaine for her birthday. Sheldon X, the brilliant artistic director of the esteemed Pasadena Playhouse, asked me to perform there in a play, John Henry Redwood's The Old Settler. My castmates were Christopher B. Duncan, Sally Richardson, and the incomparable C.C.H. Pounder. Settler was the first straight, non-musical, play I had performed in since college. I had done only musicals and concerts since. One night, after the final curtain, a young man peeked his head in my dressing room while I was removing my makeup. Oh, he was so cute. I had taken a bit of a Chinese pear. I had taken a bite out of a Chinese pear. It was a juicy one. He said, "Can I have a bite?" Well, let's just say he came in and had a bite. For the next 9 years, he would continue to take bites out of that Chinese pear. God help me. Enter Terrence Flack, my first boyfriend after a long dry spell. On our first day, we hiked up Fryman Canyon, and he bent down to tie my shoe. I liked him on his knees. The rest, ladies and gentlemen, is history. I dated Terrence for a month and a half before I actually slept with him. So who's the boy that came into is Terrence the boy that came into the room? Because she said she had never had another one-night stand early in this chapter. So he was cute. I had taken a bite out of the Chinese pear with the juice when he said, "Can I have a bite?" Well, let's just say he came in and had a bite. For the next couple of years, he would continue to take bites out of that Chinese pear. So maybe he gave her oral. They got frisky, but she didn't give it to him all the way. Cause okay, you being vague, Jenifer, but we're gonna flow with it. So I dated Terrence for a month and a half before I actually slept with him. So actually slept with him. They were fooling around, but he didn't go all the way. Actually slept with him. I was trying to be an adult and get to know somebody before I launched into bed with him. As you all know by now, that has not been my modus operandi in the past. We know, girl, you was hoe, and we know. Over the months, I spent more time with Terrence. He was fun. He did not take my shit, and he was not afraid of me. I could be myself with him, and he made me laugh. Terrence was well-read and a true lover of music. He liked to tease me, making fun of my dramatics by calling me Grown Crawford. There were some red flags, like his woe is me attitude, which wasn't that surprising given his background. Of all the men I dated, Terrence had been the most abused. His mother was overwhelmed by her parental responsibilities, and agents from the Children's Service Bureau were trying to place her children with other relatives. With the agents on her heels, Terrence's mother bundled up her toddlers and headed for the Greyhound station. Just as she was about to board the bus, the social workers caught up with her. Little Terrence was sent to live with relatives who were far too strict. Terrence had survived, pretty much raised himself, graduated from college, and came to Los Angeles to pursue acting. I wanted to take care of him. I wanted him to take my hand, and I wanted us to win. I wanted 2 little black kids who had grown up in poverty to go around the world and leave it all behind. Oops, we take ourselves with us, don't we? Ultimately, I introduced him to Charmaine. I felt proud for her to see me with an intelligent, creative man. Terrence was supportive of my relationship with Charmaine. As a trio, we had some good times together. I was happy at work in my off hours. My relationship with Terrence grew, and I realized I loved him when one morning I actually cooked for breakfast. In truth, he may have thought I hated him after that. In fact, when my sisters see me on screen playing somebody like Mama Rose and the Temptations, serving up platters of fried chicken, collard greens, and peach cobbler, they call me up. You may be fooling the audience, Jenny, but everyone in Kenlock knows you can't cook. When Charmaine went to summer camp, Terrence and I ran off to Paris. Late one night, we walked through the Pigalle area. He was a little ahead of me as we climbed a small hill. Terrence stopped, turned around, and he reached both his arms out to me, pulling me up the hill, saying, "Come on, baby." It was one of the most loving moments. I think that this night I felt surrounded by angels, and he was one of them. I was becoming a woman of a certain age who was an endangered species in television and film. I felt especially grateful to have a vital career, including a schedule that allowed me to have a stable life at home with a child and a gorgeous man to love on. My maturity did not cause a shortage of excitement and glamour in my life, though. I was thrilled to go to work on Strong Medicine every day. Tammy Adder and Whoopi Goldberg were the creators and producers. I loved and admired them both. Strong Medicine was more than good. It was making history in that it was dealing with women's health issues honestly. Plus, it featured strong women who were breaking through the barrier of patriarchy, girl power in these streets. I remember episodes about breast cancer and anti-abortion protests. They even did an episode speaking to my own experience, in which my character, Lena Hawkins, became a mentor to a young girl who had came from hard times. Terrence and I took another much-needed vacation to Europe. His mood dampened the trip for me. He was often uncomfortable about me spending money on such luxuries. He felt it somehow compromised his manhood. We went to a fireworks display in Monaco. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, with the music of, I don't know this word, Tchaikovsky playing in the background. I looked around and didn't see Terrence, who had been walking with me. He was sitting on the curb with his head down. He was overwhelmed. He felt unworthy. I had built this lavish life, and he was thrown into it, and apparently he was drowning. He had his insecurities. I had mine. We got tickets for the Phantom of the Opera in the West End in London. At dinner, I asked, "Do you think I'm beautiful?" It was one of the few times he looked me squarely in the eyes, answering, "Jenifer, you're so beautiful, sometimes it's hard to look at you." Looking to boost Terrence's self-esteem, I got him a job on Strong Medicine. He needed the money, and we stupidly thought being together night and day would strengthen our relationship. Of course, it had the opposite effect. Journal entry. I feel so foolish sometimes where Terrence is concerned. He could be playing me. Am I afraid of being alone? But I can't take being with him at work and at home. He got to get the fuck out of Strong Medicine. It's killing us, I believe. That's what I wrote. But it was not what I told Terrence. Instead, our relationship sort of limped along, both of us wanting it to work, but neither willing to admit it wasn't. I was a bit surprised when Terrence proposed by nearly throwing the ring at me. Suffice it to say, the moment wasn't as romantic as I might have hoped. Ronnie was present. Terrence seemed detached during the whole thing. I was afraid to announce it to anyone. I didn't even want to tell Charmaine. Terrence went with me to St. Louis for Christmas that year, but I think he was stressing over whether he could handle marriage or not. We were still going on and off with our bullshit. Impulsively, we ran away after Christmas to Cancun to celebrate the new millennium. We said if the world does end, at least we'll be somewhere pretty and together. It didn't work. We fought like dogs the entire time. As Charmaine entered her teens, everything changed. She turned into Reagan from The Exorcist. We tangled about homework, summer school, everything. She was secretive. Of course, I was frightened about drugs and was uncomfortable with some of the kids she hung with. When Charmaine held a pool party while I was away, I lit into her and used the F word over and over. I apologized profusely. I had been abusive, and I felt truly sorry. I felt even worse the next morning when I had to leave Charmaine in order to fly to Florida to join Bette Midler and Kirsten Dunst at a campaign rally for John Kerry, the Democratic nominee for president. While in Florida, I got the call that my cousin Ronnie was in a coma in a hospital in St. Louis. I rushed home to sit by Ronnie's side and hold his hand. Though he could not hear me, I thanked him for helping me raise Charmaine and told him how much we loved him. I hugged him and whispered in his ear, "You go on to sleep now, baby, if you want to. Hold on a minute, Ronnie. My hair looks like shit." I knew he was laughing inside. My dear, talented, sweet cousin passed away. Shame had prevented him from speaking about his illness and from getting treatment. Once again, I had witnessed how secrets destroy lives. To help Charmaine and myself recover from Ronnie's death, we took a short trip to Hawaii. I wanted to show Charmaine that I trusted her, so I gave her freedom there to stay out late if she wanted. I was nervous, though, and pretended to be asleep when she came home a little too late for my taste. She still claims that I was so not late. I received a call while in Hawaii that the role I wanted in Lackawanna Blues had gone to my friend, S. Etatha Murkison, who turned in a brilliant performance. When I got home, glory hallelujah, I was offered 5 movies, including Nora's Hair Salon, The Cookout, and Antoine Fisher. In Charmaine's junior year of high school, she got herself into a not-so-good relationship with a pretty white boy. She was in emotional pain for nearly a year, but couldn't find the strength to end it. To get Charmaine's mind on other things, I snatched her up and took her to Italy. This was the first time I'd taken her to a foreign country, and maybe I was a little too protective. She was 18 now, and I had to let my baby girl grow up. Damn. We visited Florence, drove through Tuscany, and when we got to Pisa, I rushed her out of the car, shouting, come on before it falls," as we laughingly rushed toward the Leaning Tower. In Rome, we went shopping around the Spanish Steps, and I bought her 2 prom dresses. We were lucky enough to catch the last tour of the Vatican before it was announced that John Paul III had died. We were lucky enough to catch the last tour of the Vatican before it was announced that Pope John Paul II had died. We were scheduled to go home the next day, but flights had been canceled because of the onslaught of people who had rushed to Rome for the Pope's funeral and selection of the new pontiff. We even saw the smoke from the chimney. Between having to stay a couple of extra nights and the long trip back to Los Angeles, I totaled 4 days off my medication, which triggered a manic episode when I got home. That first morning, I took a spin in my car, still thinking about the wonderful trip to Italy, but happy to be back in our beautiful neighborhood, which was awash in purple jacaranda blooms. I turned a corner and found myself looking at a brand new tile-roofed home that reminded me of Tuscany. The house was beige with green shutters, and in classic Tuscan style, every window had a different shape. I had to see the inside. When the man who built the house walked me through it, I began to sing. The house matched what was going on inside of me. I was inside a manic episode, and this house was as big as my feelings. The contractor, Joseph Aviv, brought his father, Moses, with him. Joseph and Moses. What an audience. I started singing You Raise Me Up by Josh Groban at the top of my lungs. The acoustics in an empty house. I fawned over Moses and asked if he knew the 10 Commandments and who Nefertiti was. Apparently, other people were bidding on the house, but Moses was entranced by my joy and told Joseph to sell it to me. Thus, in a highly manic state and without due consideration, I bought the house. But when my manic mood subsided, one night I sat straight up in bed and thought, how much did I just spend? What the fuck have I done? We moved into our new home a few weeks before Charmaine finished high school. She enrolled in college that fall, but dropped out 2 years later. I was terribly disappointed. She promised to return to college, and I set her up with an apartment, car, and an allowance. But when she told me she wasn't going back to school, our relationship hit a low point. Nearly 3 years passed, during which time LaRonda passed away. When Charmaine and I finally reconciled, we talked about the great and not so great times. From her perspective, I gave her a voice in the way that I raised her. Then I took that voice away. From my perspective, I encouraged her to have a voice, but when she used it to be disrespectful, I had to shut it down. I wasn't the perfect mother, but I am grateful that Charmaine understands I did my best. Working through all this with Charmaine has helped me come to terms with my mama. to see that she also did her best, even if I felt it wasn't enough. After Charmaine moved out, I had time to face the fact that things with Terrence were pretty bad. For one thing, I realized I was getting a little tired of picking up the tab all the time. This has been a running issue in my life. Though I've never minded sharing my success, we all must be careful of becoming a damn fool. Another thing was Terrence couldn't really talk about his deepest feelings. I realized that his horrible experiences as a child caused him to become emotionally disconnected. There was nothing mean about Terrence. Though intelligent, he was still a scared little boy that had a major arrested development. But I wasn't willing to give up on us yet. I was asked to perform on a gay cruise to Alaska, but like a damn fool, I took Terrence with me. What came of that? Me threatening gay men left and right. When I thought I caught him looking at Terrence, I'd say, "This one's mine. Fuck with him and I'll sink this ship like the Titanic." They laughed, not realizing I was dead serious. I love my gay baby. Ultimately, Terrence broke up with me. The first man who ever did that. It was usually me who ended my relationship. In a last-ditch effort to heal our relationship, we went off to Japan, Tokyo, Kyoto, Kamakura, Osaka, and dear God, Hiroshima, where the United States dropped the atom bomb at the end of World War II. As I entered the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum, I saw a banner hanging low. It was written in Japanese, but in my mind it read, "Look upon this shame. Look what they did to us." There was a concrete block that still had the shadow of a man who had been disintegrated in less than a second. Ooh. There was photographs of children and families and animals that I cannot begin to describe, nor will I try. Just know I vomited when I came out of the museum. After nearly 8 years together, Terrence abandoned me halfway up Mount Fuji. We had taken the train out from Tokyo one afternoon and then grabbed a taxi from the station to the base of the mountain. We did not realize the taxi driver took us up the wrong side of the mountain, leaving us at the path reserved for expert climbers and military training. Thus, not only was the trail of crushed lava rocks difficult to walk on, the angle of the incline was extreme. Nevertheless, it was beautiful, and the cumulus clouds gathering at the mountaintop seemed to call us upward. After about an hour of climbing, despite my athleticism, I was out of breath, drenched in sweat, and knew that I couldn't go on. When I told Terrence, he half-heartedly offered to descend with me. I said, "Nah, you go on, I'll be okay," trusting he would, of course, insist on accompanying me back down, especially given my obvious physical distress. To my surprise, however, he was relieved. "That cloud is calling me," he said. "I want to go all the way to the top, Jenifer, so you go on and I'll meet you back at the hotel." I slowly and precariously crunched my way down the mountain. The temperature dropped a good 10 degrees as the sun set. Within moments, it was damp near pitch black, and I could neither see or hear anyone else on the trail. Okay, y'all, my alpha ass was no match for Miss Mighty Mount Fuji. Jenifer motherfucking Lewis was plain old scared. Worst of all, I could not avoid acknowledging that actions speak louder than words. Terrence's actions had shown me what he was not man enough to take, and that our relationship was, in fact, over. I managed to climb down the dangerous trail by myself and make it back to the hotel okay. Journal entry. Help me, God, that I was ever with a man like this. The bottom line is, I was too much of a goddamn man myself. There was a part of me that chose men I could dominate. It wasn't my fault that I made more money than they did, dumb bastards. Why couldn't they just enjoy it and just be nice? After appearing for 6 years as a regular cast member on Strong Medicine, the top-rated show in Lifetime, I got the horrific news that it was being canceled. There were many what the fucks thrown around by me. I soon calmed down when Ruben Cannon called and offered me Tyler Perry's Medea's Family Reunion. I really needed this job, but the offer came in extremely low. I was disappointed because I had already done so many low-budget independent films for Ruben Cannon. I don't know where I got the ball from, but I said no. I was thinking to myself, fuck the mortgage. I want to be respected in this business. I've worked hard on myself, and found the strength to just say no. 2 hours later, Tyler Perry called and said, "What do I have to do to get you in my film?" I guess, "Merry Christmas, bitches." A few months later, I went to the premiere of Cars, in which I voiced the 1957 Cadillac named Flo. The premiere was in Charleston, North Carolina, at a NASCAR event. Jesus Christ, what a scene. The roar of the car motors was deafening, and everyone in the stadium seemed to be eating fried turkey legs and drinking kegs of beer. Around Christmas time, I was hired to sing at a private party in Beverly Hills. Norman Lear was there. He approached me respectfully. "I'd like to apologize to you. I am so sorry you were hurt. You've grown into a beautiful woman." I felt so grown up when I responded sweetly. We went on to have a lovely conversation about our children. I don't remember who Norman Lear is, so I can't relate to what he said there. Bertolt Brecht, a German born at the end of the 19th century, was known for stories steeped in history and told from the perspective of the poor and downtrodden. He wrote a play called Mother Courage and Her Children while in self-imposed exile from Nazi Germany. Mother Courage was produced by the Public Theater in the outdoor Delacorte Theater in Central Park. I was asked to play the part of Yvette Portier, performing opposite Meryl Streep. Before casting me, George C. Wolfe, the director, auditioned dozens of women. Every actress in the world wanted to work with Meryl Streep. George's assistant told me that after auditioning about 30 women for the role, George put his head in his hands and said, "Who can I get to play Yvette? She has to have classical training, be able to sing, and have enough presence to share the stage with Meryl and Kevin Kline." He suddenly flashed back to me, clowning during the run of The Diva is Dismissed and entertaining the office staff by reciting Portia's monologue from the Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. George shouted at his assistant, "Get Jenifer Lewis on the phone." I was thrilled to face the challenge of Mother Courage. I had my doubters. Artists are quickly labeled, and my label was force of nature and not so much serious actor. I didn't doubt that I could tear up the role, but I was stressed and highly intimidated by Meryl Streep. Mark Brown named my condition street stress. I kidded with Mark that Miss Streep would show up to the first rehearsal with one of her Oscars in hand. Just plop the gold statue on the table to establish the pecking order. That fool turned my anxiety into a monologue for a one-woman show the following year. I walked into the first rehearsal of Mother Courage and planted my solid acrylic Ovation Award right in front of Meryl Streep. "Merle, girl, you got one of these?" I said. "No," she said. "Okay, Merle, girl, then we gonna be alright. My name is Meryl." "What now?" I said. "My name is Meryl." "Yes, honey, that may be," I said, "but Merle rhymes with girl, so it's Merle, girl." Merle looked at the director, George C. Wolfe. He looked at the play's translator, Tony Kushner. They all looked at me, and I said, "Look, she may be playing Mother Courage, but I'm the motherfucker up on that stage they'll be looking at." I was promptly shot in both knees and taken out. Wait a minute. Jenifer, girl, I know what it's like to put your foot in your mouth. You say something at the wrong time, get an opportunity taken from you just in a second. But damn, let me run that back. Merle, girl, so I walked into the first rehearsal of Mother Courage, and planted my solid acrylic Ovation Award right in front of Meryl Streep. "Merle, girl, you got one of these?" I said. "No," she said. "Okay, Merle, girl, then we gonna be alright. My name is Meryl." "What now?" I asked. "My name is Meryl." "Oh, yes, honey, that may be," I said, "but Merle rhymes with girl, so it's Merle, girl." Meryl looked at the director, George C. Wolfe. He looked at the play's translator, Tony Kushner. They all looked at me, and I said, "Look, she may be playing Mother Courage, but I'm the motherfucker up on that stage they'll be looking at." I was promptly shot in both knees and taken out. In reality, despite my nervousness, I had the time of my life working with Meryl Streep. She was generous, brilliant, warm, and appreciative of my talent. She wrote me a note on opening night calling me the Great One. It brought me to tears. In the few weeks we ran, more than 3,000 people saw the play. Celebrities, average folk, and all my gypsy friends. I felt honored when Tom Hanks brought his wife, Rita, backstage with me. The reviews of Mother Courage were good. I was honored when Ben Brantley said of me in The Times that her interpretation of Yvette's bitter song of remembered love is a stunningly calibrated blend of smoothness and harshness, of filigree irony and primal emotion that suggests that Brett was trying to achieve. Another critic said that I was the only one who could handle Brett's dialogue. Meryl Streep may have been the draw, said critics, but they're going to see Jenifer when they get there. The only bad review I received was in The New Yorker. Flashback to a couple of years earlier when I met with journalist Hilton Als to discuss his idea for a musical about a larger-than-life woman who was at the center of a party scene in Harlem. I was pretty underwhelmed by the idea and stated dismissively, "I don't want to be on stage with other people." Turned out, Als, who reviewed Mother Courage for The New Yorker, got the opportunity to give me my comeuppance for my insensitivity about his idea. The only distraction here is Jenifer Lewis as the business-minded whore Yvette. Lewis is not an actress, but a personality. She plays the part like a refuge from the Chitlin circuit. From time to time, her brain throws even Streep off. Someday I hope to meet Mr. Owls in a dark alley where we can sit down and eat some chitlins together. I was so happy when my 4 sisters agreed to come out to Los Angeles to see my wonderful new home. I wanted the house to look and feel special for them, so I ran around madly shopping for linens and home accessories. I called Mark Brown, rattling off all the stuff I needed to get. He let me talk until I ran out of breath. Then he asked where I was. Bed Bath & Beyond, I answered. Immediately, Mark knew I was in manic mode. He said, no, you aren't. You're at Bipolar Bath & Beyond. Well, of course, that moment led to another one-woman performance piece called Bipolar Bath & Beyond. The show was about my turning 50 years old, surviving failed relationships, and, of course, therapy, as in the following monologue. I put in so much time on the couch, I've earned an honorary doctorate in human behavior. I can spot disorder at 50 paces. I diagnosed my manicurist as having borderline personality disorder. I could tell by the way she trimmed my cuticles. And the boy who does my hair, he's a motor mouth with a nervous tic, a dead giveaway. Schizoid affective disorder. Sexual addiction, borderline personality, narcissism. Oh yes, I call it like I feel it. I'm not judgmental about it. I support my charges in every way I can. I put my arm around them and say, baby, you want to borrow my dress? After one of the shows, an audience member introduced herself as a journalist with Jet magazine. She told me how the show resonated with her because her brother had bipolar disorder. Naturally, I said yes to her request for an interview. On closing night, after the piece ran in Jet, I got a phone call from Oprah, actually her producer, Jackie Taylor. Miss Lewis, I'm calling for Oprah Winfrey, and we're doing a show on bipolar disorder. And Miss Winfrey was wondering if you would be a guest. I flew to Chicago. I woke up at the famous Omni Hotel where all the guests of the Oprah Winfrey Show stayed. I was a nervous wreck. To compose myself, I looked in the mirror and said these words, Jenny, today is not the day the diva meets the queen. This was some serious shit. I saw the show as an opportunity to perhaps help someone with bipolar disorder find their way out the darkness. I felt it was my responsibility. As the car drove us to Harpo Studios, I still had butterflies. To settle myself, as we got out the car, I looked at my friend, gay Iris Parker, and proclaimed, I may be in her arena, but she's in my territory. I've suffered with this shit all my life, and all I have to do is go in there, sit down, and tell the truth. What I remember most about Oprah Studio was the enormous photograph of Nelson Mandela near the entrance. Mr. Mandela's commitment to humanity inspired me to give what Oprah later characterized as a great interview. Afterward, I called Rachel from the car and thanked her for helping me find the courage and the strength to be comfortable in my own skin. Going public with my mental disorder on Oprah led me to use my platform as a public figure to help others facing mental health problems. My phone is about to die. The following spring, I was asked by a pharmaceutical company that makes medicines used in the treatment of bipolar disorder to become a spokesperson for a mental health awareness campaign. I did nearly 3 dozen interviews with media from all over the country. The experience was amazing, and it contributed to my understanding of just how many people are affected by depression and anxiety. People are always coming up to me and telling me they appreciate the fact that I went public. Bottom line, y'all, ain't no shame in my game. Like Mr. Mandela said, your playing small does not serve the world. If your crazy aunt never leaves the basement or your friend is too depressed to go to work, play it big. Reach out and touch somebody. I will be right beside you. Stigma about mental illness stops people from seeking help. I believe widespread stigma, fear, and just plain ignorance about mental illness, particularly among African Americans, has taken a terrible toll on our families and communities. I didn't have a name for my condition until I didn't have a name for what my condition was until I was 33 years old. That's what the age I am now. I know I need to seek therapy. Where each works in progress for as long as we live. Where each works in progress for as long as we live. And I was no different. When you're in emotional distress, your life can feel like you're spiraling up or down at any given moment. If these ups and downs are extreme and chronic, they do damage to your mind, body, and soul, and your relationships with other people, including those who care about you most. Recovery and healing require patience, something that is difficult for many people and certainly was difficult for someone like me. But I learned to submit to patience because it was either go step by step or die. Having patience means knowing that it is never too late to get well. So thank y'all for tuning in. That was chapter 14 of Jenifer Lewis's The Black Mother of Hollywood. We'll get to 15 another day, and then we'll be finishing up. I think it's only like 2 chapters left. So thank y'all for tuning in. And if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. It's Morgan Myers, M-Y-E-R-S, or you can type in Storytime with Moremi, M-O-R-E-M-Y, and you'll find my page. Subscribe. You'll get the formal readings of this, other books, and more books to come. I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good day. Peace.